Here's an engaging story based on your request. Customer harasses employee with Down syndrome. Didn't realize Keanu Reeves was watching. It was just another busy afternoon at a small coffee shop in Los Angeles. The baristas moved quickly, preparing orders while customers chatted and scrolled through their phones. Among them was Danny, a kind-hearted young man with Down syndrome who had been working there for over a year. He loved his job, especially greeting customers with his bright smile. But that day, not everyone appreciated his enthusiasm. A well-dressed man in his 40s approached the counter, his face twisted in irritation. "Can you move any slower?" he snapped as Danny carefully placed a coffee cup on the tray. Danny's hands trembled slightly, but he kept his smile. "Here's your coffee, sir. Have a great day." The man scoffed. "Maybe hire someone normal next time." His voice dripped with arrogance as he turned to leave. What he didn't realize was that someone had been watching the entire time. Sitting in the corner, dressed casually in a leather jacket and jeans, was Keanu Reeves. At first he had been enjoying his espresso in peace, but the moment he saw Danny being disrespected, something in him snapped. Keanu stood up, his movements calm but firm. He took a step toward the man, and before the customer could react, Keanu lifted his hand and pointed straight at him. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to see what was happening. The rude customer's eyes widened in shock as he finally recognized who was confronting him. "Hey!" Keanu's voice was low but intense. "That's not how we treat people." The man stammered, suddenly looking around as if searching for an escape. I didn't mean." Keanu shook his head. "No excuses. You don't talk to people like that. Ever." Danny, standing behind the counter, watched with wide eyes. His smile slowly returned as he realized what was happening. The customer, now red-faced and humiliated, muttered something under his breath and rushed out of the cafe, leaving his coffee behind. Keanu turned to Danny and gave him a warm smile. "You're doing an amazing job, man." Danny beamed. "Thank you, Mr. John Wick." The entire cafe erupted in laughter and applause. As Keanu grabbed his coffee to leave, the manager approached him. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves, that meant a lot." Keanu simply shrugged. "The world needs more kindness, that's all." And with that, he walked out. Just another day of Keanu Reeves being a real-life hero. What do you think? Would you like me to add anything else? As Keanu Reeves stepped outside, the crisp Los Angeles breeze ruffled his jacket. He took a deep breath, letting the tension of the moment fade. But just as he was about to walk away, he heard a voice behind him. "Mr. Reeves, wait!" Keanu turned around to see Danny running toward him, his apron still on, his smile wide and full of excitement. He held something in his hands, a freshly made cup of coffee. "I made this for you," Danny said, holding it out. "You didn't finish yours." Keanu chuckled and took the cup, touched by the gesture. "Thanks, Danny. That means a lot." Danny hesitated for a second, then asked, "Can I tell my mom about this? She loves you." Keanu grinned. "Of course. In fact." He pulled out his phone. "Why don't we take a picture together? That way, you have proof." Danny gasped in excitement. "Really?" Keanu nodded, crouching down beside him as one of the baristas snapped a photo. Danny looked at the picture and beamed. "Mom is gonna freak out." Keanu laughed. "Good, tell her I said hi." Just then, the cafe doors swung open again. It was the same rude customer, looking flustered and embarrassed. He walked straight up to Danny, avoiding eye. Just then, the cafe doors swung open again. It was the same rude customer, looking flustered and embarrassed. He walked straight up to Danny, avoiding eye contact with Keanu. "Hey, listen," the man muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. I was out of line earlier. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way." Danny blinked in surprise. He glanced at Keanu, who gave him an encouraging nod. "It's okay," Danny said sincerely. "Everyone has bad days." The man exhaled sharply, clearly relieved. "Thanks, kid. And, I really am sorry." Keanu folded his arms, watching the man closely. "Apologizing is a good start," he said, "but respect isn't just about saying sorry when you get caught. It's about how you treat people when no one's watching." The man nodded slowly, taking in Keanu's words. "You're really good at your job. I shouldn't have acted like I was better than you. I hope you have a great day." Danny smiled. "You too, sir." The man gave a small nod before leaving, his posture less arrogant than before. The cafe staff and customers who had been quietly observing the interaction exchanged glances of surprise. Keanu patted Danny's shoulder. See? Kindness wins in the end. Danny giggled. You really are like John Wick, except instead of fighting bad guys, you make them apologize. Keanu laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. He lifted his coffee in a toast. To good people and good coffee. Danny eagerly clinked his own empty cup against Keanu's, and the entire cafe erupted into cheers and applause. As Keanu finally walked away, a small smile played on his lips. He knew he hadn't just defended someone, he had helped change a perspective. And that, he thought, was a fight worth winning. The end. I hope you like this continuation. Let me know if you want to tweak or expand anything. As Keanu Reeves walked away, he couldn't help but glance back through the cafe's window. Inside, Danny was still smiling, showing the photo they had taken together to his co-workers. The entire atmosphere of the cafe had changed. What started as a tense moment had turned into something uplifting. Keanu took a sip of the coffee Danny had made for him. It was perfect, warm, rich, and made with care. Just like the world should be. But just as he was about to step into his car, a voice called out from behind him. Mr. Reeves, wait! Keanu turned around to see Danny's mother rushing toward him, her eyes wide with emotion. She must have seen the photo her son sent her because she looked overwhelmed, clutching her phone in one hand. Are you really Keanu Reeves? She asked, slightly out of breath. Keanu smiled. That's what they tell me. She covered her mouth, looking like she was on the verge of tears. Danny just called me. He said you stood up for him. He couldn't stop talking about it. Keanu shrugged humbly. Your son's a great kid. He didn't deserve that. Danny's mom wiped a tear away. You have no idea what this means to him. People aren't always kind. But today, you made him feel seen. Keanu nodded, understanding all too well how the world could be. Everyone deserves respect. Danny's mother hesitated, then suddenly reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. I know this is crazy, but Danny has this dream of becoming a writer. He's been working on a little book in his free time. Would you be willing to read just a little? Keanu's eyes lit up. A writer, huh? That's awesome. He reached for the notebook and flipped through the pages filled with neat handwriting and cute drawings. It was a short story about a superhero who could stop time. Not with powers, but with kindness. Keanu chuckled. This is amazing. I love the concept. He looked up at Danny's mother. Tell him to keep writing. The world needs more stories like his. Her face broke into a grateful smile. Thank you for everything. Keanu handed back the notebook, but before he let go, he pulled out a pen from his pocket and scribbled something inside the cover. Just a little motivation, he said with a wink. As he drove off, Danny's mom opened the notebook to see what he had written. To Danny, never stop telling your stories. The world is listening. Your friend, Keanu Reeves. Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged the notebook close to her chest. Back inside the cafe, Danny's phone pinged with a message from his mom. He opened the photo of the note and his eyes grew wide. Whoa! He shouted, making the entire cafe turn. Keanu Reeves is my friend. The customers laughed and his coworkers clapped him on the back. And in that moment, Danny knew. Today wasn't just another day. It was the best day ever. The end. What do you think? I added a heartfelt moment with Danny's mom and his writing dream. Hope it makes the story even more special. As Danny held his phone, rereading Keanu's message for the 10th time, a thought struck him. He had to do something to thank Keanu. But what? Then it hit him. His book. Danny had written dozens of short stories, but he'd never shown them to anyone outside of his family and co-workers. If Keanu Reeves believed in him, then maybe, just maybe, he had a real shot. He rushed to the back of the cafe, grabbed his notebook, and started writing. Keanu Reeves was at home, sitting on his balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sun dip below the Hollywood Hills. It had been a long week, meetings, filming schedules, charity work. But as he set his cup down, his phone buzzed with a new notification. An email. The subject line read, From Danny, thank you, Mr. Reeves. Keanu smiled. He opened it and saw an attached PDF titled, The Timekeeper, a story by Danny R. Curious, he started reading. It was a short but powerful story about a young boy named Leo who had a special ability. He could freeze time whenever someone was about to be treated unfairly. But instead of using his power to fight, he used it to teach people kindness. Every time Leo saw someone being rude, he'd freeze time and whisper words of wisdom into their ears. When time resumed, the people, without even knowing why, felt compelled to change their ways. The last line of the story hit Keanu hard. Kindness isn't about having powers. It's about choosing to be better, even when no one is watching. Keanu exhaled, deeply moved. He felt something stir inside him. This wasn't just any story. This was special. Without hesitation, he hit reply. The next day at the cafe, Danny was on his break when his phone vibrated. He took one look at the screen and nearly dropped his sandwich. New email from... His hands trembled as he opened it. Danny, your story is incredible. I mean it. You have something special and I want to help. How would you feel about turning The Timekeeper into a book? I'd love to introduce you to some publishers I know. Let's make this happen. Your friend, Keanu. Danny stared at the screen, his heart pounding. A book. His book. Tears welled up in his eyes as he whispered, No way, no way. His co-workers noticed his expression. Danny, you okay? Danny looked up, grinning ear to ear. I think my life just changed. And indeed it had, because when Keanu Reeves believes in you, the world listens. The end. Or rather, the beginning. How's that for an ending? Let me know if you want more. 6 months later, the big moment. Danny adjusted his tie nervously. He had never worn a suit before, and it felt both exciting and strange. His mom fussed over him, smoothing out the wrinkles in his jacket. Mom, stop, Danny giggled. I look fine. You look amazing, she corrected, eyes shining with pride. They were standing in the grand lobby of a New York publishing house. Just a few feet away, a huge poster stood on display. The Timekeeper, a story by Danny R. with a foreword by Keanu Reeves. Danny still couldn't believe it. His book was real. Not just words in his notebook, but a real published book with his name on it. And the best part? Keanu Reeves had helped make it happen. The publishing team led Danny and his mom into a large hall, where a crowd of people, journalists, book lovers, and even fans of Keanu were gathered. A stage was set up at the front with 2 chairs. One for Danny, one for Keanu. The room erupted into applause as Keanu walked in, looking as effortlessly cool as ever. He spotted Danny and grinned. Hey, author. Danny's face lit up. Hey, Mr. Reeves. They hugged and Keanu ruffled Danny's hair. Told you the world needed your stories. Danny beamed. I still can't believe this is happening. Keanu chuckled. Believe it, you worked hard for this. They took their seats and the host of the event stepped up. Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate a truly special story. The Timekeeper, a book about kindness, change, and the power of choosing to be good. And we have the incredible young author Danny R. here with us, along with the one and only Keanu Reeves. The audience cheered as Danny shyly waved. Keanu leaned over and whispered, Enjoy this, buddy. You earned it. Danny took a deep breath. He wasn't just a barista anymore. He wasn't just a kid with a notebook. He was a real author. And his journey was just beginning. The end, and a brand new chapter begins. What do you think? I gave Danny the epic success story he deserves. Would you like to see what happens next in his journey? 1 year later, Hollywood calls. Danny sat in his favorite booth at the cafe where it all began, sipping a hot chocolate. The past year had been a whirlwind. Book signings, interviews, fan letters from kids who said the Timekeeper changed how they saw the world. And today, something even bigger was about to happen. His phone buzzed. Incoming call, Keanu Reeves. Danny quickly wiped his hands and answered. Hello? Keanu's familiar, warm voice came through. Danny, my man, how's life as a famous author? Danny chuckled. Still getting used to it. Well, get ready for the next step, Keanu said. Because Hollywood wants to turn The Timekeeper into a movie. Danny almost spit out his drink. What? Keanu laughed. You heard me. A couple of studios read your book and loved it. They want to make a film adaptation, and guess what? Danny was practically shaking. What? I told them I'd only be involved if you got a say in everything, Keanu said. This is your story. You should help bring it to life. Danny could barely process the words. You mean I get to help make the movie? Keanu grinned on the other end of the line. That's right, buddy. We're going to Hollywood. Danny's heart exploded with excitement. He screamed so loud that the entire cafe turned to look at him. His coworkers ran over. "Danny, what happened? Are you okay?" Danny slammed his hands on the table. "My book is going to be a movie." The cafe erupted into cheers. His manager high-fived him. A couple of customers clapped. His mom, who had just walked in, dropped her purse in shock. Tears filled Danny's eyes as he whispered, "This is really happening." And as he looked around at the people who had always believed in him, he knew one thing for sure: he was just getting started. To be continued. How's that for a sequel? Should we follow Danny to Hollywood next?